Howdy, folks. Welcome to Doobies with Doug Limited Edition. Doobie, Doug. You'll notice it's pretty small, hence the limited. That's what I got. Been a fairly dull day in Doug's world. Went for a walk. I shot a little video on the beach, as usual. I don't think it'll turn out very good, but the mirrors are back. These little black ducks with white rings around their necks that nest on the rocks. And maybe tomorrow I'll go out to Terminus Rock at the end of the head and get some pictures of them. Be nice if the weather is kicking. So yeah, I'm limited on weed. I've scraped through everything in the house. I got a job in the morning swapping alternators on a 93 Ford F-150, which I already changed the alternator on it. He had another one that he bought somewhere from a guy or something and had me put that one on, and it only lasted a couple of weeks. I told him when he fired it up it sounded like the bearing was squeaking in it already. So anyway, he went and got a brand new one, and I'll be putting that in the morning. That's $30. Realistically, once I walk over there, which is like a 15-minute walk, it's going to take me 15 minutes to pop that alternator out, pop the other one on, put it back together. So yeah, I'll do that, and then go to the weed store. It's kind of a different experience. There's such a variety of what you can get here. You can buy prepackaged joints, prepackaged non-tobacco blunts. You can buy trim. You can buy just bags of who knows what it is. Could be mostly bud, could be mostly trim, whatever. And that stuff's like $2. I've seen it as cheap as $1.50 a gram for that stuff. Which, I'll be honest, when I first got here and I had $0, I would go out and pick up water bottles and soda bottles until I had enough for a couple grams to roll a joint. And it's not as good as this, but it gets you through the day, get you hungry. But the town I live in, if you scrunched it together, it'd be about the size of maybe Rockford. Maybe, yeah, about the size of Rockford if you put it all together. It's stretched out along the coast, like most coastal towns. But if you scrunched it all together, it'd be about the size of Rockford. And at last count, they had 10 weed stores. One McDonald's, one Burger King, one Subway, one Starbucks, 10 fucking weed stores. Which also explains the groovy ground scores you find around here. For all the beautiful scenery it is, I'm sure I missed a lot of it because it's just worth it to keep your eyes on the ground. I find vape cartridges full of THC. I found dabs and joints and fucking jars of weed and cash and camping gear galore. If I was ever in the mood to go camping again, which I won't be, there's so much fucking camping gear. People show up here, camp on the coast for a couple days or whatever, and then just, I don't know what happens to them. They leave their shit behind. Little camps, homeless camps or whatever, all up and down here. You're just full of camping gear. Um, so that's kind of a bonus. There's a lot of shit. It's just to be had. The problem is not taking all of it around here. I mean, like in Michigan, when I was there, um, I tried to buy a camper, or I did buy a camper, and it was a big camper. It was a 30-footer, 33-foot or something like that. But it was a complete piece of shit. Nothing worked in it. It leaked. It fucking half the shit was gutted out of it, and I paid $1,000 for it. And then I did something stupid and parked it next to a barn with a sloped roof. Don't do that. Not in Michigan. So I lost that camper to about fucking 80,000 pounds of ice that slid off the roof and took the camper out completely. The whole front half of the camper. With me in it, by the way. It was uncomfortable as fuck. But, everybody there is pressed so hard to survive that it's impossible for anybody to give anybody a hand up. And I got much respect for the people that kept me off the streets at times and had my back, and they're few and far between, but they're there and they're rock solid rock stars. But here, I when I first got here and I was trying to establish these different jobs, I was out there with a step ladder washing windows by hand, just with a squeegee. And this dude saw me walking one day and he says, "Hey, you do windows?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why, you got windows to do?" He says, "No, I used to do it and I got this old extension that it left over from when I did it." He says, "Is that something you're interested in?" I said, "Yeah, I could only give you like 20 bucks for it or whatever because I'm kind of broke." He said, "Nah, you can have it, man. Get the fuck out of my garage." So I got a nice aluminum fucking 20-foot extension with a squeegee, and just there's about 50 different examples of things like that. A guy sees me cutting boards with a fucking saw, handsaw, zuba, zuba, the old arm breaker. And I'm not crying. I've done that off and on half my life. I know how to run a fucking saw. But dude shows up and he says, "Hey, man," he says, "I got this saw. I can see you're out here working. I don't need it. It works. Can you give me 20 bucks for it?" And I'm like, "Not right now, but if I can take possession of the saw now, I'll finish this job this afternoon, and tomorrow morning I can." So now I got a chop saw, And this is how it fucking works. And there's a few people I've met that think and feel and act like that in Michigan, but even those people, man, they're squeezed, they're pressed. It's just a much harder life. I mean, the town that I live in, The people who live here come in two stripes. The old school fishing community and the people that have been here for a long time, and really rich people. And that's it. There really isn't much of an in between. There's not a lot of stratos in the fucking layerings. There's the has and the has something, you know? And that makes for an interesting dynamic to compare to Michigan, because that's very much how it is in Michigan. There's this clean line of demarcation between the haves and the have-nots. And it's easier here to be helpful to other people, to be helped and to be helpful. It's easier. It's just easier. Every little town up and down this coast has some dear sweet person who formulated a 401c and put together a warming shelter and a clothing drop-in shower, laundry, a lot of them, place for the homeless to just be and get help and get things and get donations and clothes and tents and tarps. And you can go in there and get a cup of coffee and a dry pair of socks and use the shower, you know, and they don't preach to you, and it doesn't cost you any dignity. You don't have to fill out any paperwork. You don't have to show any ID. And it's just people being helpful because they can. You go someplace like the Midwest, like Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, you go in there, and people want to help, but A, they're overwhelmed by the number of people who need help, and B, they're underwhelmed by the amount of societal support that they get. And it's because everybody is so pressed. Pressed. That's the word, pressed. Oppressed, suppressed, repressed, depressed, compressed, pressed. Every kind of pressed you can think of. And it's less so out here. I mean, it's the same here, but it's less so. And because of that, I'm able to live on very minimal money. The good majority of the money I do bring in, cash money, I spend on weed. Because it's my opinion that weed is the most powerful political movement in the country today. Black Lives Matter, uh, the green energy people, none of them have the economic base that weed has. A lot of us old heads foretold this, that as California gained economic weed strength, the rest of the country was going to follow behind them. And as more and more cities, or more and more states, more than half of them now, jump into the cannabis world, the more power there is in the weed money. And I would like to think that, much like weed will help an individual access themselves more clearly, that weed in politics will help the individual access representation more clearly. Because weed didn't get legal because it was the right thing to do. Weed got legal because pissed off people pooled their money together and bought lawyers, bought politicians, paid lobbyists, fought cases in court, and the more money comes into the system, the stronger it becomes as a political force. And once upon a time, it was big cotton, and it was big paper, and it was big steel, and then it was big oil, and then it was big.com. And really quickly in this country, and even around the world, it's starting to be big weed. There's already plenty of states where weed is competing with Budweiser. I don't think water competes with fucking Budweiser. I might be wrong. So the herb is the healing of the nation. So I don't mind taking money out of the Walmart system and putting it into the weed system. Because I don't see the world in black and white, Republican, Democrat, Ukrainian, Russian, American, Mexican. I don't see the world on those terms. You are what you do. I am stoned. Numbers are boring, but there's an element to the weed money that no one's talking about. And we need to get down to the numbers to bring this to the forefront. There is billions of dollars in the weed industry today. Billions and billions, if not trillions. It must be trillions by now. If you count all of the peripheral, the jars, if I everything. And there's been little to nothing done to set straight the societal ills caused by the drug war. Very little effort has been made for reparations. You know, I know there's talk in places like Michigan and even some programs and maybe even some action on those programs of marginalized communities having access to funds and loans and business opportunities in relation to the cannabis industry. But numbers. The United States represents 4% of the world's population. 4. We currently hold 24% of the world's prisoners. Let that sink in. 24% of the world's prisoners. Okay, 96% of the planet altogether has less prisoners. Okay? We incarcerate a higher percentage of our population than any other nation on earth or any other nation in history. We incarcerate more people than Hitler did. And we may not have gas ovens and kilotoriums, but trust me, prison is no different than a concentration camp. Especially when you've never done anything to anybody. The vast majority of people in prison are in there for simple drug crimes, mostly repetitive drug crimes. That's how they end up in prison. They get caught 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times with the wrong pills or a bag of coke or a fucking ounce of weed, and they locked them in a concentration camp for that. And that's the result of putting our attention into what politicians are saying instead of what politicians are doing. Every election cycle, I ask both sides of the game of stupid tag. Who do you support? Donald J. Trump. What's his record? What's his stock portfolio? What companies does he have interest in? What's his background in governing? Okay, Democrat. Name 5 laws that started as bills that Joe Biden authored and wrote. Authored, wrote, sponsored, signed on to, voted for. Name 5. 2% of Democrats can even do that with any candidate. They can tell you what the media sound bites are. They can tell you what they said they're going to do. They can tell you what their platform is. Even though you can go to the Library of Congress and read verbatim what these fucking lying, evil cocksuckers said, every word of it, and compare it to what they said 10 years later. So to get it straight, a bunch of white guys in wigs who owned slaves and were horrendous, horrible, evil people sat down and wrote up a really important sounding document. Ever having any intentions of following it. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal. You own slaves, motherfucker. There's some part of truth or self-evident or equal that you don't fucking understand. It's never been right. It's never been correct. We have never been a constitutional republic. We have never been even close to being a democracy. Declassified documents. You know about those? The longer you get from the actual event, the less they redact documents. And you go to the Library of Congress, the documents that you got about Saipan will be radically different. You're going to get pages and pages of just black ink. Now, you get the whole thing. See what I'm saying? And if you search into those documents, Cuba, Vietnam, Korea, the Iran-Contra affair, the Condoleezza Rice oil tanker and East Timor affair, all these other things, the evidence is right there to read. That all of these people are evil oligarchs. At the very, very, very best, they are hapless fucking fools who had no idea that corporations are in the world until after they were sworn in as senators, congressmen, or cabinet, whatever. At the very best. You want to know who owns a president or a cabinet? Look at who gets rich within 2 years of them taking office. What sector? We, the potheads, finally have capital, legal capital, that we can use legally. There's a couple of federal cases working right now. And once they go through, the SEC limitations are going to go away. And that will allow us, weed businesses, to register with the Chamber of Commerce. And a lot of people don't realize this, but one of the biggest lobbyists in the country, probably the biggest single lobbyist in the country, is your local Chamber of Commerce. And right now we can't even join them because we're still living with fucking reefer madness shit. But the times are changing, and weed is healing the nation. The political difference is taking place. I would say the two biggest cultural upheavals I've seen in my lifetime are the ending of the drug war and the onset of the live stream mentality. Untold millions of people have been subjected to horrific tortures unnecessarily because it was a he said, she said situation. When those situations happen in court and he's a cop and she's not, she's going to prison. No matter what actually happened. Until live streaming real, and everyone body cam, fuck. Unless them fuckers are forced to wear them body cams from the moment they come on duty until the moment they go home, they're going to manipulate shit on them body cams. And when they do evil shit on that body cams, it's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars and a lawyer to keep subpoenaing the fucking whoever's got it until they fight it in fucking court to the last minute. That cop that blew the shit out of that kid outside the Burger King there, he shot him 14 times. Him, the chief, everybody told a fucking straight face to the press. He was rushing my officer, so he shot him once in the chest. He was running away from the officer, and he shot him 14 times in the fucking back. And it took 2.5 years to Laquan McDonald to get that fucking body cam footage. They fucking pull a baby out of a burning car, that body cam footage is on the news the next fucking day. An auditor fucks up, does something stupid, and actually gets in trouble and gets arrested for breaking the law, that body cam footage, your fucking name's all over the fucking shit. On the news the next day. So the body cams are worthless, man. We need to just smoke pot and record the cops. That's a half an hour's worth of me ranting. Doobies with Doug, part 15. Ha.